Okay, next we move to our second special guest today. Special guest of this program, Dr. Jairaj Vijay.
Okay.
Dr. Jairaj, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. I'm here. I've been waving several
Oh,
times already. So,
sorry,
yeah,
sorry, doctor, sorry.
no problem, no issue. So I was
Okay, doctor.
following Dr. Leslie's talk just now. It was very interesting. I think we have some similarity. Yeah, we have some similarity in our talks and some of the content are also, because the experience of applying a grant is not too far different in various regions. It's just that the approach may have some differences, but one thing that she showed just now is same. The more you apply, the more experience you get, and you get better at it. And you can see she started with very small amount, and now she's reaching her millions. So that is it starts from somewhere. So I started early. Okay, so I won't I won't take too much of time. I just start my talk lah. Okay. So let's see. Let me present
Dr.
presentation mode.
Jaya,
Hmm.
Jyoti will introduce you for a while. Introduce you for a while.
Yeah, I
Introduce
started too early. Not enough time to introduce.
yeah. Give Jyoti introduce you. Okay,
Introduction
Jyoti.
is very
Ah,
important. Dr.
Yeah,
Jaya.
Jyoti, please.
no worries.
Profile.
Yeah, okay, okay. Okay, I want to introduce Dr. Jairaj. Dr. Jairaj Vijay Kumaran, fondly called as Dr. Raj by his colleagues, is a senior lecturer in the Natural Resource Science program of the Faculty of Earth Science, University Malaysia Kelantan. He graduated with a Bachelor of Science, Animal Resource Science and Management in 2004 and Master in Quantitative Statistics and Molecular Genetics in 2020 from University Malaysia Sarawak. And doctorate degree mammals in Malaysia and has local scientific expeditions to document small mammal diversity in Malaysian forest. He has 32 research publications ranging from taxonomy, microbial diversity, conservation status, and diversity of mammals, and also phylogenetic. Without further ado, I would like to welcome Dr. Jairaj to this international workshop. The time is yours, Dr. Jairaj.
Thanks for the kind introduction. I think the introduction already outdated. My publication has reached more than that number. I can't even remember it. But yeah, it builds over time. So with research grant, you get funding, you can generate more publications, and in the same time, contribute to the body of knowledge that you're working on. So let me share my slide first. Yeah, entire screen. So today we're going to talk about what are the strategies to secure international grants. I think Dr. Leslie has now did touch on something similar. I'm unsure what was the title, but I think there is some similarity there. So I'm very thankful to Lavender Club for Lavender Literary Club for inviting me, and of course with Prof Bala's connection in Mirha, get everything like this happening. So a short introduction about myself. I'm actually a senior lecturer. I study zoology, and I've been working with various various research funding bodies and research teams over the past few years. So these are some of them. Some of them you may know because these are international bodies like the IUCN. Some of them are a bit more local, like Malaysian Rainforest Station. I'm an advisor there. So before I even give a talk, of course I should have the the track record to back up what I say. So these are some of the funding I've actually got over the past few years. And I started off very small. Actually, the first grant that I got international funding that I got was this CB Crew grant here. It was 1,000 USD research grant on bat diversity awareness. So that was the first grant I got. So it expanded. Okay, over the years it expanded from smaller to bigger ones. So some of the famous international grants like this, the Rafford Foundation, is considered a famous funding agency. So it got some funding from them. So these are some of the track records I've got. So I'm sharing my experience based on the track record I get So of course, the easiest way is we do a self-check So this self-check is essentially how we plan our career, how we chart our course as a scientist or as an academician or as an independent researcher. Okay, so these are the 8 self-check that I have done. Okay, and I'm sharing with you. Okay, so there are 8 steps. Okay, and these 8 steps have I've shared with other people, and they have done well using the same track record. So these are the first 8 steps, and then I will go through one by one. So of course, my deputy vice chancellor once told us, if you want to lead something, you must design the pathway. There is sometimes leadership by chance. It means by chance it happened, but most of the time the best leaders are actually by design. They design their pathway. So similarly, you have to design your pathway towards your research excellence. So the first thing you want to know is, do you have a CV in place? Okay, why you need to have your CV in place? You need to know what you have and what you don't have. Okay, and also the CV also nowadays, when you talk about CV, there's also other curriculum VTs that are available online. For example, Google Scholar and Scopus here shows the track record of your publications. So I have, if you go and search my name online, you will see my CV. Google Scholar, my Scopus, it's there. Why are they important? It shows your credibility and your track record, and it is also part of how people can search for you, especially for when they are reviewing your grant applications. They are not just going to see your proposal, they are going to see who are you. So the visibility is actually very important. So my deputy vice chancellor actually asked me, what is my brand? Is it Batman? Because the whole university actually they recognize me because by my research, which is bats. I study a lot of bats. But actually, my research is actually more broad than that. I actually study mammals. So the answer is actually mammalogy. So essentially, the first question is, what is your branding? This is essential to actually know how you're going to shape your research direction. So once you shape your research direction, then you know how you're going to apply your grants, because that's important. The approach of applying a grant is very different. If you're in science, if you're in social science, if you're studying the banking sector, these are all very different pathways. But this branding is a guideline. You can actually move to other field of study, but the guideline is important so that you don't sway too far from it. So the other question, have you reviewed any papers or have you secured any grants for the past 2 years? So review paper, if you're a scientist or a social scientist, it's an academician, there is more of a common task. So why we review manuscripts for publication? Because the important thing is that you are able to actually critically, you can critically review people's work. By critically reviewing people's work, you can actually gain the skill to actually review your own proposal. So the skill is not just about looking at what you are doing, but looking at what other people are doing. So similarly, when you are reviewing papers, This includes reviewing other previous research work that have been done that will help you in your grant application. Okay, so my track record very simple. I started with very small grants. Okay, Civic Crew, NEF, National Environment Foundation, Torre. These are smaller grants. Then I moved to more famous grants. Okay, so the Rafford is one of them. And then I think my recent international grant is Muhammad bin Zayed here. So this was a fund set up by a prince in a oil rich Arab country. So he had a large section of fund being given for conservation of species conservation. So that was my third uh, third third step. So the next step is actually going for National Geographic, where the prestige is there. So we apply the grant not just because of the funding, but also for the prestige. It allows you to gain more access to more researchers throughout the whole world. You get to know more people. So this is also important. So we have the first question was, what is your branding? So the second question is, how many manuscripts have you reviewed? How many research grants have you secured? So these are important to gain actually more knowledge of how you're going to approach your international grant application. So have you actually searched for potential grants? That's also another question. Okay. So the easiest, these are some of the examples. I go online, I search, and these are the common ones that are available. You can apply to it. So easiest, most reliable way to search is actually Google. Okay, there's nothing magical about it. You just go to Google, you search for research funding, you will get all the available grants. That's they post online. Yes, Dr. Leslie is correct in terms of there are some grants that prefer a certain group of people, but most of the grants available are more open to applications throughout the world. And if you look at the biggest companies, the big companies actually have research grants that they offer as a part of corporate social responsibility uh, offer. So, for example, the Bill Melinda Gates Foundation, they have big chunks of money that you can apply to actually run the programs that related to what they are focused in. Okay, so these database are always available. Okay, there are database that you can search. For example, Terra Viva Grants is actually a database that you can search. Spend time to search for funding that is available and also relate to what you are trying to work on. So the third question is actually, how often do you search for research grants? That is a critical question. If you don't search for it, you don't know what's out there. So searching for research grant online helps you to have some target what you're doing. So this presentation was part of a previous talk that I gave actually in my university. So that time it was 2020. So during that time, I submitted 10 applications. Okay. So there were grants that applied within my university, and there were also grants that applied outside of my university. So because when you are more successful outside, they tend to reduce your opportunities to get internal grants. So I applied like 5. I only get 1 successful application. But what was the success rate for external application? So I had 5 external applications. I was successful in 4. So why I was not successful? Because there are 5 applications that were unsuccessful because we did not allocate enough time to actually write the grant properly. So like Dr. Leslie just mentioned just now, a week before, targeting the week before the submission date is a good practice. But actually you need to actually spend more time. That means at least a month you spend or 2 months you spend actually properly writing the grant and cleaning it up as much as possible so that it's more cohesive and coherent. People, when they read your grant, they don't have to, keep on searching back and forth for the information that they want. It's very clear and very, very, easily being read and interpreted. So the next question is, the fourth question is, how many proposals you plan to submit in 2022? So for me, it's only 2 because I've been working a lot more on external consultations nowadays. So I will apply, but it will be lessened because my success rate is getting better. So I can kind of reduce the amount that I apply based on the experience that I have. So it's the same with you. In the beginning, you may need to apply more than more applications, but later on, when you're getting more successful, you can actually reduce the amount of application because the amount of grant that you're going to apply, that you are eligible to apply, will start to get reduced. Okay, because when you are startup, when you just started your career, the grants, there are quite a number of grants that are available for young career scientists, but as time goes, these grants are not available to use, but you get to apply bigger grants. So the trick is, when you're getting more senior in terms of experience, you apply less, but the amount you apply is larger than what you previously applied. So international grants are one thing that the criteria is very, very, very specific actually. So most proposals, I don't know how many Malaysians are here, but when we apply Malaysian grants, we tend to write it the Malaysian way. But of course, we have an international audience here. If you look at your, if you're applying an international grant, the trick is to apply using the SMART criteria, which is SMART objectives. So SMART objectives are very clear. You have a specific, measurable, achievable, and relevant and time-related objective. So your objective must fit to all these 5 criteria that I mentioned here. So all international grants follow this concept. I think the summary that just now Dr. Leslie mentioned is actually showing what is a SMART proposal. So the summary, the table that she shown, actually shows what are the specific objectives, how is it measured, how is it achievable, the time and the relevance. So if you have secured a university grant, most universities have an internal grant, okay? But if you use the similar proposal and you try to secure international grant, you're not getting it, that means your proposal does not have SMART objectives. Hence, you need to improve by attending more other grant writing workshops. There are workshops available. For example, if you plan to apply for a National Geographic grant, okay, there is workshop available from the grantor themselves. They will organize workshops. You can apply to attend the workshops and learn from them how they are actually evaluating your proposals. So the same thing, when I attended National Geographic grant workshop, same concept came out, SMART objectives. When I was applying for Rufford, similarly, SMART objectives came out. So this is the gist lah. You have to follow. So you have to be specific. If you are applying a grant or using an international grant, you have to be specific. So if you are, it means that you have to prepare yourself for an in-depth research about the issue you want to address. So that is what you want to specify in your project. And the objectives, if you're putting up 4 objectives, make sure all 4 objectives must be measurable. There's a lot of proposals that I've actually evaluated. I evaluate quite a number of grant proposals at the national level. And a lot of them are not presenting measurable objectives. So if you don't have a measurable objective, it's very hard for the funder to actually monitor the progress and assess the final results. Hence, when they are unable to do so, they will tend to be more, what we say, reluctant to actually fund you. Okay. So, for example, if you are looking at a measurable impact example, at least the number of how many number of people who participate, train, and etc. That means the number is there. If you are stating training, your objective is to train people for a certain specific skill, at least you should be able to name the number of people, to state the number of people that will participate. Your objectives must be achievable. You can't set an objective that is a 5-year. You must set an objective that can be achievable. That means it must be measurable. Now it must be achievable. So you cannot claim a year-long project that will produce a radical change. It's not the best way to actually write your objectives. It's better that you put up an objective that can be clear and can be fulfilled in a short in the time that is given. So your results, it must be also your smart objectives must be also relevant. So it must be result oriented. So the objectives should be able to answer the questions like why should this project be done, what impact will this project have, okay, and it also must be achievable in a proposed time frame. If you're proposing for something that is 2 years, it must be achievable in that time frame. There are certain grants that allow you to move beyond that. For example, the SGP grant that I got here. Okay, the project is a 1 year project, but the final outcome is a 5-year output. So there are certain grants that allow it, but you must be able to specify the time frame and must be achievable in that proposed time frame. So sometimes you need to also take note of other events that might become an obstacle. For example, our recent 2 years COVID pandemic issue actually caused a delay in many of the progress of research grants. So that is some of the consideration. If you're giving training, it's best to have a shorter training period. Okay, you need to consider whether the participant can join in for a short training period or a long training period. That is important because the participation will be a measurable impact in your objective. So the next question, 5th question is, have you submitted any international grant applications? Because the submission process itself is a long learning process. You may, if you are unaware of it, you may make some mistakes that cause your grant applications to be rejected even at the early stage. Okay, so I've had my own share of experience having submitting wrong information or information that is not complete. So the important thing is to start early. When you start early, you go through the online system. Most international grants are handled online. So you register your account, you go through the forms. You have to go through the forms each page by page. So sometimes you need to fill the form in the first page complete. You need to complete a page, then you can go to the next page. My advice is to just fill in something and then don't leave the spaces blank, and then you go to the next page, so you have an idea of what is the full grant application procedure is like. So every forms may have different requirements that you need to fulfill, and sometimes these requirements require time to get up. For example, you need a letter of support from your university. That takes time. So that's why if you get this, and most of the time this letter of support will be placed at the last page of the application. So if you're unaware, and then you've been focusing on writing your grant application, and then you end up at the last page, you found out that you need to have this letter of support. Then you don't have the time to actually produce the letter of support. Then you lose out in the grant application. Okay. So some grants require some institutional registration. For example, if you are to apply Disney conservation grant, okay, you need your institution needs to be registered in TechSoup. Okay, so if your institution have yet to register in TechSoup, then you are not eligible for that grant. So hence, knowing the full form is important so that you know these kind of things. You can go and talk to your research management office and get them to register in TechSoup or any other requirements. If you are applying for an American government grant, if you are not from America but you are applying for an American grant, most American government grants are require a DUNS number. So this one you need to get your institution to register. So without this DUNS number, they won't even consider reading your research grant. Okay, so they just see, okay, there's no DUNS number, they just reject it outright. So these are the situations that you need to take note. You may have a very excellent research proposal, but without meeting the requirements, you get proposals rejected outright. So you don't want to spend a lot of effort and then grants not being reviewed. That's a very that's a demoralizing situation. Now most international grants require international referees. So it's good to actually know people around the world. That will help. For example, if they ask for a reference, you can have a reference. You have a reference that will be your referee for your grant application. So like just now, Dr. Leslie, if you are applying something that is similar to Dr. Leslie, or have some connection to what Dr. Leslie is working, or have some connection with what I'm doing. So when you apply that grant, you need a referee. You can approach any of us to give you a letter of support. So many of the Southeast Asian countries have this issue. They lack the international referee connection. So attending this kind of grant talks actually helps you to search for people that you can connect with. So there are some grants that ask for evidence of institution legal entity. So they will ask you the registrar of societies number. So like our Lavender Club here, there's a number there. So that's where people know that you are a legal entity. So some grants allow for university applications, but there are grants for university applications that are catered for business entities. So for example, if you are applying for a startup fund, they will ask for your company registration number, because that is a startup fund to start a company. So early preparation is always needed. So you can see you need to go through the whole proposal, you fill in dummy responses to get to the next pages, so you know the whole form, what's the content of the form. So for your fifth question, have you submitted an international grant before? This is an important point. You need to actually look through the whole form, then you understand the process. So the sixth question, okay. Have you worked or collaborated with international scientists? I work with a lot of international scientists. These are some of the key people that I've been working with, close people. Dr. Rao here is a Professor Rao now. He's in India now. He's a director of a research management office now. So in Reva University. So I've been working with him for many years already. We just had our our book published. And I also work with Dr. Anthony here. He's a president of an NGO based in US. And then you have Dr. Vikas, you have Joe. All these are from various countries. So there are some from India. We have some from Taiwan, some from US. So these are the key elements. Who are your collaborators? Because these are the people that are going to help you with your grant application. They are going to tell you, whether your proposal is strong or weak, and then they may also be people that know the evaluators, and they can tell you some things that what's happening in that grant funding body. What are their focus on that year? So every grant they have their focus annually. So what are their focus? So if you have more international collaborators, this all will actually assist you in your grant application. One thing that a lot of people or scientists ignore is actually communication with your research management officer. Why? Because why you need to communicate with them? Because they play a major role. When you may require a support letter, then you need to talk to them. You need to dance number for funding in American bodies. You need to get them to register. Sometimes they are the ones they are the only people that can register the account for international bodies. For example, if you're applying Erasmus Mundus grant, the Europe grant, they are the one who can register for you. So you need to talk very closely with them. And they also can help you with potential collaborators. So to connect with them, of course, you need to know who are them. So the seventh question, who are the very important people in this office, research management office? You should be in touch for a grant application. And what is their handphone number? Having the handphone number is important because anytime you can contact them, to resolve something small issues that may, give you a headache. So they are the ones who can resolve this. But when you are successful in your grant application, they are also the people that you're going to contact because the fund is going to go through their office. So knowing them is going to help you in the long run. So the eighth question, the last question, have you worked or collaborated with research institutes within or externally from your of your institution? Because some grants are only available for research institute. So if you are not working with a research institute, then that means you're closing one door or one window of the funding opportunity. So there are also some corporate entities that are only willing to provide direct funds to research institute, meaning it is not even a competitive grant. It is a grant that is via connections. You know somebody there, they are going to bring you to apply for this funding. Okay. So personally, I attach with at least 4 institutes annually. So ComBio here is my new connection here. They are from Ames University, and I've been working very closely with them. We have recently secured $250,000 worth of funding for artificial intelligence and biological diversity conservation based work. So who are the research institutions that you've been working with? Okay. So these are the gist of my talk. I thank you for your attention. Hope everybody get as much information that helpful for everyone. If you have any questions, you may ask now. And if you want to email me, also no issue.
Daya, Probala here.
Yes, bro.
Sorry, I'm quite very tired. I just arrived from Kuala Lumpur.
Oh, gosh, it's been late.
Driving 8 hours, non-stop. Oh, terrible. Okay, Dr. Jaya. Yeah, I think you and Dr. Leslie sharing very fundamental questions like how to attract the grant, and you guys both very successfully received the grant for international, right? Because I know international grant more easier. The procedure is more easier than internal grant, right? Malaysian grant is very tough, but the problem is like this. Of course, the amount not important. I mean, you're getting 15,000 and all this. But my question again, give her three tips, because you see when a lot of people writing grant, sometimes you know where to start, which part they focus. That's why I asked Dr. Leslie also. Are you focusing on the research problem statement or the title or the literature review, or the methodological problem, or the budget that I think Dr. Leslie was highlighted, especially you cannot ask lower and higher. You must go to the man hours, like how much you spend, everything. So I think we are struggling on that. A lot of people here in this room also, I think, struggling. They want to get a grant, but unfortunately, rejection very high. But why rejection? There's no reason people giving. Sometimes the like you see FRGS, very sad. They never give the reason, why he was rejected. Just they close the eye. Where a international grant, they never reply. They just like they just like quiet, or maybe they have said you are. But of course, the thing that internet grant is more easier to get rather than internet grant, because from my experience, when we write to ILO and all this, I actually myself no writing. They invite me. That's the best thing. I didn't apply. They invite me because they know my connection. Many part of the world. So I got two times the international ILO grant but they invited me which is the amount not big, by at least 40,000, one for another 40,000 But the thing that that's a different story, because they got a big grant. You come as a team, they're paying. But I'm taking you give 3 tips fundamental tips. Immediately the funder look at it, you're sure 80% will get a grant. I mean, 20% different. Okay, doctor, please share with us.
Okay, 3 tips. Let's talk like this. If you're applying a grant, right? It means you are going. If you are a research grant, you are trying to address a situation or a research question that have yet to be answered. Okay, so the question is whether your research question is actually relevant to the current scenario. Hence, you actually the one way that I actually approach to this is actually writing a review paper first. So my team actually wrote review papers. Then only we apply for the grant. It is similar to what Dr. Leslie said. She did a pilot study first to get some data. Okay, so when you get some data, then you will know, okay, what are the approach that they are going to, what is the approach to the situation that you want to address. So actually, when you ask me whether, I think you asked the same question to Dr. Leslie as well. And then Dr. Leslie, I guess, couldn't answer you very clearly because there's no clear answer. The one thing that we know is that first, when they look at the proposal, right, the first thing they'll read is the title. Okay, if the title does not jive to what their organization want or focusing on, then that is an outright rejection. So very simple. If you're working on, if for example, like me, I work on conservation of mammals. Okay, so if I work on a mammal that is endangered, okay, the chances is higher if the funding agency is actually focusing on endangered mammals. If your funding agency is not working on organism, they're working on area, for example, protected area, then the funding will be, the opportunity to get the fund will be lower. So you actually need to study the funder's objective. So every grant that they have been advertised, they have a website. That website is also connected to the funding agency. So if you study the agency itself, then you know what kind of work they've been doing. They also show, the previous past records of grants that they have funded. So you can kind of know, okay, these are the projects that they like to fund, and or they also give you an indication. If you're applying the same thing that what people have done before, then your chance will be lower. So it's a strategy. So you start from the title. Okay, you study research funder, and then you look at the title. You have to also look at the executive summary. That is the next stage. After they read your title, they look at your executive summary. So, and then they look at the objective. All these are all important. It's just that the stages, if your title is not jive is not to what they want, it's an outright rejection. So they will read till the end of the proposal. If if you are successful, that means they are reading till the end. If your proposal is not to their liking, they read to a certain stage, they stop and they put it aside. Because you must understand, for every funding, every grant that's been opened, there are hundreds, maybe thousands. My Torre Foundation grant that year, they were like 200 over applications. They only gave 16 people. So very low success rate actually. So the idea is, that's first tip. That's first tip. You need to study your funding agency also, if you are looking to target for a grant that they want to fund. As Dr. Leslie also mentioned just now, and it's the same. I reiterate the same. You need to look at the perspective of the funder, not what you. It's more of how they will look at your proposal. What is their opinion of your proposal? It's not about your opinion about your work. It's how they are when they read your proposal. What's their opinion? Then you can write a more proposal that can connect to people. Because when you write a proposal, you must be able to connect with the funder itself. Then they have the confidence to give you the funding. So that's the first tip lah. Okay. So second tip, like what she said, the funding, the budget, there's no there is some rule. You don't overvalue certain sections, but it's good to work within the budget that they approve. Try to apply to the maximum of the amount that they give. But if you feel that you don't need that kind of money, you can actually reduce. If it's in a local institution, in Malaysia or in a government level or in any of the countries, if it's a local funding, you tend to go to the max, then allow them to reduce the amount. But in international funding, they do reduce the amount, but it's not that significant compared to what we experience in Malaysia. So that's budgeting. Third tip is work with people who have secured the grant before. I study people's application. I study the projects that have been secured, so that I know what kind of projects that the funding agencies give. That's why if you know more international collaborators, that's a very important tip. They will help you with the application. They will tell you, oh, this grant is not very receptive of this kind of work. So knowing people is actually very important. Like what you say, they know you, they give you fund. That is also another way, knowing important people that can help you with providing you a seed funding to do the work. Yeah. But the critical thing is, if you are applying a grant that is something totally new, that means this is something that you have not started at all. A proper literature review will actually help you, because they will definitely tell you what are the key research gaps that you need to work on, and that will actually, when you know these gaps, and you put this in your proposal, that will jive with the funders. They know that you've done your research. They also agree with you. These are the key research gaps that have not been addressed. Yeah.
Okay, Doctor. Thanks.
Thank you. So if anybody have any question, just email me, or you can ask now. This locally, it's best to actually start with a smaller grant and build your reputation, and then you go for the larger funding. That way I will help you with because they will see your track record also. They see your track record from your CV, that you have secured a certain amount of grants, then they are comfortable giving you a certain amount of funding. Yeah. And don't miss out on working with your students. There are actually a lot of funding for students compared to researchers actually. So the students can get like 10 to 12,000 ringgit Malaysia kind of funding. There's always funding available for this kind of work. Yeah. So my students all actually have their own research funding because of
Actually,
very high.
Dr. Jaya, when I was in
Oh.
Australia, when I do my doctorate, apart from writing 3 books I completed with my PhD, so almost 4, 3 books plus, and then I also received an ILO grant, at that time. I'm just a student,
Mhm.
PhD student, but I didn't stop there, I'm not just doing my research. I also working with my supervisor and others, so I able to get a 14,000 research grant, which is from ILO, from the Korea Labor Institute and ILO joint venture. They already, for that reason, University of Wollongong offer me 10,000 US Australian money. They didn't give me cash, but they are send me back to the conference, all paid, everything paid. It's cost about more than
Yeah,
4,000.
matching funds.
No, 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 no matching fund. You see, if you are a lecturer in University of Wollongong, if I write one book, they give you 10,000. That 10,000 Australian
Ah.
dollars will go to your account, research account. Okay, but because I got another research grant, so that's why they pay me free ticket going to Adelaide and accommodation, everything paid, because they say you are not our staff, you're just student. So, but the reward come from them, and then I able to secure. That's how I met Dr. Ariana in my friend here. But what I'm telling here, the group here, like you say, I'm agree, totally agree. The responsibility is a student. Actually, student, they also can find their way, to get a grant by themselves. So that's why I secured a lot of grant during my PhD. I went to Taiwan, I went to Germany, all this from my own network, initiative. Although I don't have PhD, but
Yeah.
because I put effort, then that's why I totally agree with you, Dr. Jaya. Actually, student himself also can apply grant together with their supervisor, not just lecturers. Thank you, doctor.
Yes, yes, yes. It is a whole because a lot of those grants especially students grants are for those age below 35. So if you are a student and your age is lower than 35, your chances of getting grants it's there. There's always openings for students for research grants, especially from international funding bodies. There are quite a sum. Okay, it's not very big, but sufficient for you to do certain analysis. So yeah, if you're doing a survey, they definitely help you. In this kind of funding. And it gives you some responsibility lah. If you have your own funding, you learn how to manage money, how to write the final report. Yeah, at the end will build up your career when you go and you become an academician. It helps, you know what to do even when you come into to your job the first day. So yeah, so students under me they are required to apply, and I do train them to actually apply. Yeah. Thank you. So if there's no question, I pass this to the MC.
Doctor,
Yes.
Doctor, I have a question. I am a undergraduate, Prof. Bala's undergraduate student. Okay. If I want to apply for grant means how to apply and like what's my requirement because I'm an undergraduate student. So if I'm
Oh,
interested in this. So how I should go up to this?
it okay. Depend on the opening, whether they are opening for this field of study that you're working on. So one way to search for this kind of opening, sometimes like for students, it's masked. It is a grant, but it's masked as a scholarship. So the trick is to go to the scholarship database. They always share, scholarships that are available, but actually those are research funding because they'll allow you, they give you a certain amount of fund to travel to another country or travel to somewhere or do something in your place. Okay, and then from there you are allowed to spend some money for your own sustenance. You are allowed to spend the money to buy certain materials for your work. It is actually a research grant because it's not something that you use directly to pay your school fees or anything, but it's just that they cannot put it as a research grant. They put it as a scholarship. So for example, one of my student, he got a Bat Conservation International grant. Bat Conservation International scholarship. So we all thought it was a scholarship until we fill in the form, everything. I was working with him on the grant application, and then we were surprised that it was actually it's not a scholarship, it's actually a research funding. Because all the money that can be used is actually for the work, the lab work that he's going to, the funding can only be used for the lab work procedure. So it's actually research funding, but not a scholarship. So it really depends. You have to actually search for it. And then, some are masked in the form of travel grants, scholarships. It's just other ways of showing that there is funding support to what activity that you're trying to do. So scholarship database is one way that you search for it, and this scholarship database is also a good place for you to search for international opportunity. For example, you want to go for 6 months US funded training. You can apply for that scholarship, and then you go to US. They give you some sort of training, do some sort of pilot study there. It's research work, but it's masked as a scholarship lah. Yeah.
Okay, doctor. Thank you.
Welcome.
Hello, Dr. Jaya.
Hi.
I'm Geeta from UITM Malacca. I was actually connected by Professor Dr. Balakrishnan. This is my first time here, actually.
Small world. All of us are connected with it.
I have a question here in second
Yes.
international grants or whatever grant it is. But I believe that apart from problem statement, it's being the backbone of any studies, methodological part, be it a quantitative or a qualitative or a mixed method strategy, when we need to apply for an international grant, do we need to look into the weightage of the methodological part? Because I believe that some of the countries over there, they more prefer the weightage on the qualitative part is much more higher. So when we apply for international grants, do we need to really critically analyze that part? Qualitative is being very subjective, and if we we prolong for 1 year, it'll be obsolete, qualitative like that.
Yes.
So how about us, myself is more on the quantitative part and more on the social sciences and psychological behavior, marketing. How do we actually go, towards that?
To tell you the truth, I am a biologist, so I like to measure. So for me, right, quantitative data is always the robust data for me. But as I said, it really depends on the funding agency. If the funding agency, you look at the track record, right? There's always track record. There's always a list of grants being approved the last year. So same like the situation, like if you're applying somewhere funding from, for example, I think your kind of work, maybe in Scandinavian countries, they have a lot of funding for this kind of work.
Okay.
There's always, the what grants what proposals they have approved previously, and then from there you can actually know what kind of work that they like to fund. So sometimes it also depends on your reviewer. If your reviewer is a person that is of quantitative data person, then of course he will emphasize on that kind of work. But sometimes it's just plain luck. But normally, I do observe that those from the social science, they are more into quantitative and qualitative work. I don't understand why, but for me, it's always I've been exploring some work with Prof. Bala on having both quantitative and qualitative. Yes, so both kind of data, they complementing each other to have a better outcome. I think our FRGS grant with Dr. Anna was something like that. We have quantitative data we collected, plus with qualitative interview and whatever, and then the outcome we present it as a
Dr. Jaya, now the trend is multi-paid issue. You cannot cannot ignore, because a lot issue on the organization under the nobody captured. So you only see above carpet, that is on the numbers. But under the carpet, like example, like employee don't happen. When you're not happy, when doesn't happen. When you're not productivity going down. And what happens? You pay salary very high. Let's say academician. Okay, you don't reward them. Like Australia. See Australia, when I finish my doctorate, the dean said you stay here. We're going to pay you pay back the contract. Why? Because they see my performance. So based on productivity. But if you do under the carpet and then above the carpet, both very important. So in social sciences, I like to emphasize strongly. I read a lot of thesis on the PhD on quantitative, but the number never show under the carpet. So when we do research, I think multi-method is very important because when you do first round, that's fine. We are very happy. 20%, you know, we're not happy. That 20 people reflecting the organization. So I think trying to get grant is a multi-method. I totally encourage everyone. Do even I were writing as a grant writer.
Yes, I recently I saw one paper, you know, blah, blah, on conservation careers. People who work in conservation biology are not happy with their career path because there's no clear career path. So in that paper, they combine both quantitative and qualitative data. Very interesting. So even in biological science, you see, there is a trend. You know, we even go to social science kind of study. Because we as scientists, if you graduate as a scientist, you don't have much career pathway, you know. It's very little only. So that is that's why you see the issue of a lot of graduates unemployed. That's the situation, you know. So why is this happening? So nobody address the pathway, you know, the career pathway. So yeah, this are kind of work so that people have been working on.
Okay, right. Thank you, Dr.
We
Jaya.
can connect again because me and Bro Bala.
One question.
Yeah.
I want to Dr. Anderson. You're pure historical document. So we are only talking about quantitative. So Dr. Anderson, can you give your? I think you also receiving a lot of grant. I believe a lot of archive, you know, like museum, all giving grants. So can you share a little bit on your historical perspective? Are you looking at the quantitative or qualitative or what or document? Dr. Jaya, Dr. Anderson?
Okay, Prof. Actually, I was just listening from the first speaker and Dr. Jaya as well regarding grant and all this, and I was also thinking on this part of historical studies, which is very totally, different from other field. Although it's qualitative, but it's totally different from other field because we used to study about the past. But anyway, like Dr. Jaya was telling regarding research grant, meaning here is actually for historical part, we can look at other aspect. I know we are not going to do the research on the past that what happened like we are doing in the thesis for PhD and so on. Maybe we can look in other aspects. Like one example I can say here, Prof. I think you still remember, Prof. I don't know where during the conference in the USM, last time historical conference, I was presenting a paper on the kacang putih business in Buntung Ipoh. Kacang putih business in Buntung Ipoh, where they sell muruku and all this, because this is the main business of the Indian community in the Buntung area in Ipoh, Perak, the state of Perak. I think whole nation knows and the whole world knows, and they used to export this kacang putih. It's actually bites, Indian bites like muruku, ladu, and so on. So I was doing minor research based on oral history, using the oral history method, where oral history means it's like interview based, Prof. Dr. Jaya, interview
the grandmothers. I know because I've read. I've actually reviewed one proposal in UNK like that. They were looking at history. Yes.
Because this research can be that research cannot be done through quantitative method, because we are not going to, unless we collect data regarding the profits and so on. But other than that, we must go to the ground, interview the business owners, the people who are selling kacang putih, and then this is an area that need to be studied. I think I was actually having this opinion in my mind later to do this research on oral history based on this the kacang putih business in Buntung Ipoh, because and which can be documented to all over the people. Doesn't matter Indians or any other race. And of course, this kacang putih is very famous, and all other races also come and buy there. They know how the taste it is.
Heritage
So,
food. Heritage food.
yeah. So this is what one area for historical studies, and those who want to do research on this to get grant. Like this economic history, actually, in fact. We are not going to look at the past, but we are going to look at what they're doing, and maybe we can give suggestion for their business to expand in the future. Okay, that's how we do it. And they're millionaires, actually. These kacang putih sellers in Buntu, they are millionaires. They have their own factory and so on. So I used to study on this, but it's a very minor study. I just go and interview a few people, 4 or 5 owners of the kacang putih stalls, and then I come up with the study. It's just for the presentation in a conference in USM Penang. But actually, it can be further expanded, actually, in fact, to go in depth to look at it. That is historical part, Prof. Actually, for me, of course, there are many things that need to be explored, but normally when we have grant, so we can explore this historical research in a bigger way, actually, in fact. Without grant, of course, a funding aspect is very important. Okay, that's my view, Prof, on the historical studies. Although it's qualitative, it's
I think,
Prof.
I think there's a
I think what
specific
he
section.
said, that's what
the-
FRGS, Dr. Jaya,
Yes.
FRGS
There's a
looking at the
specific-
fundamental issues. You can apply, Dr.
There is a specific FRGS section for heritage. You can actually, if you're looking at the business section, you can apply for at the business side. But actually, in the there is another section called the National Heritage section.
Okay, all right.
Yes, and we do have quite a number of FTKW and Dr. Awing also, I think, got that funding before. So you can even go up to TRGS. So it depends on But yes, that kind of funding they have been giving on it.
Maybe as you are telling, of course, in UMK, they have the Faculty of Heritage and so on. So this research can be done on preserving heritage values among the community and the society. This can be done through the grant that they provide for the scholars, for the new students or the PhD students, and in future, other PhD scholars and so on. Heritage, okay. Maybe Prof. Bala, regarding labor issues, that one we can explore actually using combine, labor issues in Malaysia. That will be very big research actually.
Actually, the labor issue is actually uncaptured. A lot of things uncaptured. So there are a lot of funding body actually available, like MPC, Malaysian Project Center, even ministry and many things. So even we can explore a lot of things. But what I mean that international grant is much faster and easy to manage compared to local grant. So if we got very good team, like Dr. Jaya is science based, he is good on the quantitative, and then Dr. Gita and all these we combine together, we can apply even big grant. So we want a multidisciplinary to look at the issue. Like you say, the kacang putih, kacang putih can look at a multi-discipline, labor issue, salary,
labor issue, yes, correct.
Business, and like customer relationship, and all these can go together in
marketing.
It
can come into marketing also. The
marketing. Yes. So it's multidisciplinary. It's much better to attract grant lah. That's what I think Dr. Jaya agree with me lah. Multidisciplinary, I think, most important rather than go single field is not easy, because the funding they want to cover many issues, not just cover one issue. They want to cover many. So that's our advice lah. If possible, we go on that.
Another aspect, Prof, as we can see here, if like Dr. Jaya was talking on social science studies, maybe you can look into diaspora studies. Maybe Indian diaspora or whatever. Okay, the migration part. Okay, where they have this grant, it's easier for the researcher to do the research in diaspora studies, the migration of Indians or whoever, I mean, whichever race it is, from one country to another country.
Then if you work with geneticists,
Yes.
like for me, I kind of know some genetics. You
Hmm.
can actually track, if, for example, if you say your ancestor
Yeah.
family is coming from certain areas in India, you can actually track that line through your genetics. So yeah, there have been done something like that before. Yeah.
There are many aspects actually, in fact, to explore. So of course, the grant, as you said, grant is important to have the financial backing, right, to do the research.
Yeah.
Yeah. If not, unless we are doing our PhD, that is another story. After that,
Interestingly, if I remember correctly, National Geographic do fund this kind of work,
yeah.
For example, if you are working on storytelling, there is one section on storytelling. I think the ceiling is 100,000 Malaysian ringgit. I think around that lah. Which you can like what you say lah, track the historical part, track the whole thing, and you make it in a series of film. There is funding for this kind of work, storytelling, heritage work. There are funding for that. So yeah, there's always opportunity.
As what I can see, as your experience, Dr. Day, I can really see that this is the homework to prepare the proposal to apply the grant. It's not easy process actually. In fact, like Dr. Leslie was telling just now, right? It's not easy. Rejected. It might happen. It's how we're going to do it. You take the effort, right? At last,
rejection is not a problem. Is not a problem. Knowing why it is rejected is the issue. That one Prof. Bala asked just now. Why get rejected? Sometimes you won't even know because the funding agency won't have time to actually tell you the reason. So it really must depend on people around you. So for example, if I get rejected, I will send to some of my collaborators and I ask, why is it rejected? Then they will, kind of tell me what's happening. So that was the first few times I applied, I got that kind of a situation. So after that, I got smarter. I sent to them first. I wrote everything, I sent to them, and then they start giving me comments and I start changing and everything. Then the success rate get better. So meaning you having people around you that can assist you is actually very important.
Yeah.
So yeah.
True. Right. Oh, I think it's 10:45 p.m. I'm waiting for the English Premier League game, 11:30, Manchester City versus Liverpool. This I still wake up. 11:30, another 40 match of the day. Malaysians are great. I think, where's the host just now? Where is she?
Yamuna?
I'm here.
Jody?
Okay. Yeah, I'm here.
I think no more questions, I guess.
Yes. Anything you guys can email me lah. I've shared my email down there. So yeah.
Okay, doctor. Thank you. And then we should thank our lucky stars. We have people like you to help make this field comprehensible and easy to understand. Not everyone has acquired such elegance and insightfulness in their presentations. We should all be grateful we have a great speakers like you all at the forefront of today's technology. Thank you, Dr. Leslie Lott, and thank you, Dr. Raj, and thanks to all participants for spending your time to this informational and meaningful workshop. Thank you.